Alright everyone, we are back at it again. Today we are going to be building the LS3 motor cover. A lot of the work's already done for you with this pre-manufactured block with the hole for the 540 brushed or brushless motor. And this is going to be the first part we're going to start with. So go ahead and grab that. It's helpful to get all your pieces organized and laid out nicely for you so you don't have to be scrambling around the bag looking for them while we go. Alright, as usual, we are going to be using standard medium grade gap filling hobby CA and activator. Alright, first step's going to be we're going to apply some glue down the two surfaces for the heads, there and there. And before you do that, go ahead and grab your heads. Make sure the square portions are facing inward and the round portions are facing to the outside of the engine. When you glue them on, you're going to press firmly and slide towards the stop. There's a small bump at the top that's going to prevent you from going any further. It should look something like this. Alright, so let's get right into it. Alright, so we're going to take our medium grade CA. You'll notice that your kit does come with this fancy tip that I'm using. This is going to be very helpful for some of these smaller parts. And I'm just putting a couple dots on each side. We'll start with that side. Find the appropriate head. They are symmetrical, so they can be used on either side. Give a quick spray to the bottom there. And go ahead and hold pressure and push. Now try to get the head aligned with, the goal is for this front piece here to be aligned with the front of the head. Alright, so that kicker is going to activate pretty quick. We're going to move on to the next half. Again, applying a couple dots down the center of the block. Giving the head a quick spray. Square portion to the inside, press and slide. And we're going to try and line up just like that while holding pressure. A couple seconds. All right, we're nice and even on the block. We're going to move on to the next step. Next step is going to be your intake manifold. So you notice there's a square portion on one side. This is going to be the front. Try and get that in view for you guys. This is the back side here. Now, once you'll notice when you drop it on that there is, whoops, don't do that. Once you drop it on, you'll notice there's a little stop pin on the back side there. As you push back on the intake, that pin will hold you into place. So all you have to make sure you are is centered between the two heads. Once you glue it on and push back against that pin. Alright, for this I'm going to take my glue and I'm just going to run down the side here like so. Not a ton of glue, guys. It doesn't take much to get these to stick to each other, be nice and secure. Now notice I'm not putting any glue on the bottom of the intake. That is because the bottom does not actually make any contact with the engine. So we're going to go ahead and hold that in place like so. Pushed up against our pin. Give it a couple seconds, nice and even in the middle. And we're good. Now we're going to set the motor on its back and we're going to locate this piece. Now, I recommend trying to fit this first. You'll notice that there is a key. So this portion on the back side, as well as this portion, are going to drop in. Let me get that a little closer for you guys. Here and over here. So with the motor facing the way you would be looking at it, you'll see once you put it on, it's going to rest that position. And you'll see on looking down the side of it that there's actually those two protrusions on the back are going to sit nice and flush against the black back, and the middle portion is going to rest on this raised bit here. So we're going to go ahead and add some glue to the back of this part. Just a dot on here. And then I'm actually going to also apply a little bit of glue to that raised portion on the motor. Now work quickly, because once you kick this, it's going to start activating that glue we have on the back of there. We're going to seat that in nice as we had before. Guys, feel free to test fit it a couple times till you get the right feel. I know this part is a little tricky to get on the first time. Just if you're not familiar with it, sometimes it'll rock a little bit, but I assure you once it's in the right spot, you'll feel it drop on. All right, so now we are all glued on. We can move on to our next step. We are going to now move back to the top of the engine. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to work with our valve covers. Now, you'll notice that the valve covers are slightly different from each other. One of them is going to have a flat portion for the oil filter breather, and the other one is going to be at an angle. So what we're going to do, you'll also notice that one side of each valve cover has these little bumps, and one side is flat. If you look at the engine, you'll see those bumps line up with the ones on the motor. So that's the goal. Now, the correct way to do this is the flat side is going to be the one on the left, while the angled one is going to be towards the back on the right side. So, with the motor facing you, straight out oil filter in the back breather, like so. All right, same process, guys. Couple drops right down the middle of the valve cover. I have the one for the left, so we're going to spray the left side of the engine. Now guys, I know this kicker does affect car bodies, but don't worry, it does not take away from any of the finish on these engines. So feel free to use it generously. You won't take away any of that shine on the engine finish. It won't dull out like it does on some of the car bodies. Same thing on the other side. Quick spray, making sure that those bumps are lined up with the head. And I'm just going to drop that on like that. Hold it for a second until the kicker activates, and we are good to go to the next step. All right, next we are going to take our exhausts, and we're going to make sure we got the right sides. So obviously, once the exhaust is on, it should be facing towards the back. Same with the other side. All you're going to do is you're going to line up the exhaust ports with the 4 holes on the engine's head. Just clean this up a bit. I like to apply the glue to the exhaust itself for these, just adding a little drop onto each one of these surfaces, giving the motor a quick spray. Lining it up and pushing down on the top portion of the exhaust manifold. Hold it for a second. Side 1 is done. Repeat the process for side 2. And just a little drop onto each. Oh, almost forgot the kicker. Applying pressure to the top of the exhaust manifold where it makes contact with the engine. And we are on. So you should have something that looks like that. And you're ready to move on to the next step. All right. So now the next portion is going to be we're going to work on the alternator next. So the alternator goes on is it actually is going to glue on to the cylinder head itself in this location up here. So you're going to be applying your glue to the back of the alternator, and your kicker is going to be on the front of the head right here. And you're just going to sit that alternator right down where it looks best to you. Go ahead and add a drop of glue to the back of the alternator. Quick spray on that side of the engine. And go ahead and find where you like that to sit best. It'll kind of bump up against that center section we put in earlier. That'll help guide you if that helps, but it should look something like this when you're done. Now we're going to move on to the front intake. So as you'll see, that square portion we talked about earlier is going to line up with the back of the butterfly valve. So go ahead and just check your fit. You'll see that they do line up line for line. So get an idea of how it's going to fit together before you apply any glue. You are going to be sticking this towards the passenger side like so. And then feel free later on to use a little nitro hose or anything else you see fit if you want to add some more lines coming off the engine. You'll see a couple good examples of that on our Instagram page if you want to get some ideas. So go ahead, and once you have your glue and kicker set, you're going to just line that up with the intake we glued on earlier. And you should have a result that looks like that. Next is going to be the main pulley. You'll notice there is you notice there's a little nub coming off the back. That is going to fall into the main hole in the front of the engine. Let's get that out of my way. Feel free to glue either a portion of this. It doesn't really matter. Just make sure you don't only glue inside the hole if you choose the engine, but on the outside, just the outside rim as well, because it will be making contact with the back side of the pulley. That portion on the back of the pulley is only there to guide you. Most of your contact is going to be on the flat face itself, not the piece sticking up. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add the next pulley, which is going to be similar. It has a hole on the back that fits on the nub just above the main pulley. So same thing. I'm going to fill that hole with a little bit of glue, add a little bit to just around the outside of that hole, because this is going to smush out a little bit on us, and drop that guy onto place, holding for a few seconds until the activator cures, or and then that is going to be your next result. Now go ahead and take your power steering pump. This is going to be similar to the alternator, and it's, instead of it resting on the head, it's going to fall in this open area here. So you're going to kind of, there's no keying features or anything for this. You're going to just apply a little bit of glue to the back of the power steering pump and activate the engine block, and then place it where you see fit. I usually place it around there. So we'll go ahead and do that. A little bit of glue on the back, a little bit of spray on the motor. Drop that where it looks right. We are good to go. Now, the next step is going to be our coolant port. We're going to take this little guy and we're going to glue it to that section there. Make sure the tube faces outward if you want this to be a perfect scale. It will fit both ways, but the piece coming off of it should be towards the outside. Again, 1 drop's plenty. We're going to go ahead and line that up. Hold for a second, and it's dry. Now, you'll notice you have an oil filter here with a strange cutout at the top. That strange cutout is what's going to go against the round portion of the motor. So with your motor upside down, you'll see it only really fits on one way into this portion here. Make sure that slanted side is towards the inside for it to fit straight up and down. We're going to apply a little bit of glue to this section and this section. Give the motor a spray. And then we're going to drop this on, lining it up a little bit off the motor, but so it lines up with that outer edge down here. Similar process for the starter. We have another curved section here. That's going to line up with the curve of the motor. And this is going to fit on the opposite side as your oil filter, butted up against this square piece here. So get a good feel for the fit. Go ahead and apply your glue to that curved section. Give the motor a spray. Push against the motor and up against that hard stop, making sure you are even on the back side. Give it a second. And there you have it, the LS3 motor cover. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out on any of the social medias. Try and get back to you guys the same day. But until the next time, have a good one, guys, and enjoy.